I am. I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, wonderful. How
Yeah.
was your morning so far?
Uh, Fridays are usually busy with just a bunch of meetings and phone calls, so
Hmm.
it's been a busy morning. But are you in Chicago or are you LA?
I am actually in San Diego. I am
Oh, San Diego.
personally. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice
Yeah.
weather there.
Yes, indeed. It is very nice. Well, I was so impressed with reading all the articles about you. It's amazing. I have never met an MD to be an entrepreneur and have so many degrees. Very impressive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's, nowadays, with the way medicine's going, I think medicine is just the basis of what a lot of
Mhm.
physicians are doing. A lot of us are doing a lot of things outside of just clinical care.
I see. Yeah. So, Dr. Parekh, what made you go for MBAs in addition to your medical degree?
So back in the 90s, when I was a medical student, a lot of the hospitals, which are now medical systems, used to be freestanding facilities. And so back then they started merging together to become health systems to
Mm-hmm.
look for cost savings. And my personality was such that I've always seen myself as somebody who's involved in change, not somebody who's I'll call it a victim of change, but it's really, I wanted to be involved in shaping and
Yeah.
molding medicine. And so as I saw these hospitals merge and become more of a conglomerate system, I thought that medicine was becoming more of a business. And so if I could get my MBA, I figured it would allow me to understand the business side of medicine that was evolving. Um, and so I got the MBA. I took a year off from medical school, went to business school full time, and then
Mm-hmm.
jumped back to medical school and finished off my MBA while I was back in medical school. And it was an eye opener because it was actually a very good complement to what we do in medicine. So in medicine, everything's about memorizing. These are the facts.
Yeah.
These are the things that you have to follow. And there's not a lot of thinking out of the box. Whereas business, it's all about teamwork, creativity, thinking out of the box, being somewhat independent in your creativity, and looking for new novel solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it brought that whole different way of thinking into my clinical practice and into my kind of medical knowledge and medical mind.
Didn't you just say you were in medical school and at the same time you were doing your MBA?
Yes, I was.
How is it possible if you? I have never seen any medical student have time for anything else.
It was a lot of running around from one campus to the other, and basically during the days I would be at medical school. In the evenings I'd be at business school, and if I had responsibilities in the hospital in the evenings, then I'd skip business school and make it up, at some other time.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically an idea that I'd had. I went to the dean of the medical school and said, "Listen, this is something I want to do because I think this will be important for medicine in the future if medical students have the opportunity to get an MBA." And so he agreed and allowed me to take the year off. And what turns out now is I was the first person to initiate what has now become a formal MBA program at Boston University.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
students can now do a formal 5-year program where they get an MD, MBA, but I was kind of the guinea pig of that idea.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you mentioned that you realized medicine was becoming a business, is it in a good sense or it's not so much?
Depends how you look at it, right? Is the glass half full or half empty? In certain ways, I think it's very good. I
Mm-hmm.
do think that looking for ways to reduce costs and increase efficiencies and create better outcomes by doing that is
Yeah.
worthwhile. But I think the flip side to that is if you're always driven about cost savings, profit margins, um, you get to a point where you have to make decisions on um, whether the dollar is more important. I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly. The dollar is more important, or the outcome is more important,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to that. At some point, you get to that point where you need to make a decision. And in the past, in healthcare, back in the 80s, 70s, we didn't think about the cost. If somebody needed something, we just did it because
Mm-hmm.
they needed it. And with healthcare, becoming 14 to 16% of the GDP of the U.S.,
Yeah.
you cannot sustain that model. So
Yeah.
you have to have business principles applied to medicine. That's the one part of it. The second part of it, though, is the business side of innovation.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for cost savings and you're looking for efficiency, that forces clinicians, physicians, healthcare providers, business people, IT people to find new ways to do old things in a more cost effective manner. So the
Mm-hmm.
emergence of electronic medical records, the emergence of a lot of these wearable technologies in the last few years that's starting to really take traction in medicine. Looking towards doing outpatient surgery where
Yeah.
patients aren't staying in the hospital overnight for routine surgeries. They can actually go home and be in the comfort of their own home, have their own food, own family. It's much less imposing for the patient, much more comfortable, and there's some data to suggest it's higher quality care. So
Mm-hmm.
those are all things that are very good things from looking at the business side of medicine.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what is the percentage of doctors have MBAs?
So when I was doing it, it was not the norm. In fact, when I applied for orthopedic training, I had to justify why I got my MBA, and I had to convince people that I was not leaving the clinical practice of medicine, but that I was not going to become a Wall Street guy. That I really had the interest of taking care of patients. That coin is totally flipped now. Having an MBA is fairly routine. It's still the minority.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number, but I would venture it's probably no more than 10% of the physician population. It may even only be 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not where it's much more accepted. People don't have to justify why they've gotten an MBA. In fact, at one point in time in our training program at Duke, we had 4 MBAs who were training in our program to become
Wow.
orthopedic surgeons.
Uh-huh.
And so things have changed dramatically in 15 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So for you personally, how has MBA impacted your career?
In a lot of different ways. So from patient care, it has forced me to start thinking about wait times, how long are patients being taking to be seen by me in the office, efficiency, getting them into and out of my office as quickly as possible so that they're not waiting as long,
Mm-hmm.
patient satisfaction, making sure we're delivering care in a way that makes people feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, it also makes me think about um, making sure that I deliver care that is
Mm-hmm.
cost effective. So if there's a new device, new implant that's out, but it's not cost effective, then I'm not going to be one of the first people to use it because it just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense. That's one part of it. The second part of it, though, like I was saying earlier, your MBA really teaches you to think out of the box. So what's really happened for me is when I'm challenged in the operating room or I'm challenged seeing patients in the office, I'm constantly thinking about, well, how can I do this better? And
Yeah.
as I have ideas, I go to industry and I say, let's develop this new device. Let's develop this new plate, screws, whatever it might be, implants, things that can potentially change the way we take care of particular diseases.
Mm-hmm.
I've also started thinking about information technology, software, and ways that we can implement things like Google Glass
Yeah.
or wearable technologies in ways that we can improve care.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now involved with multiple companies starting to look for solutions to help integrate wearable technologies into delivery systems. So that really kind
Mm-hmm.
of comes from the business background, not really just the clinical care of patients.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you have been involved with different innovations and developing different products. Can you tell me more, please?
Sure. So I got my MBA, and that was great. But I also was fortunate to be surrounded in medical school by two surgeons who were entrepreneurs in their own right. They didn't have MBAs, but they were light years ahead of everybody else in thinking outside the box. It was just innate for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got the bug of entrepreneurship very early on in my career. In fact, when I was still a student. And I think once you get that bug, it never leaves you. And
Yes.
so when I started my training at the University of Pennsylvania, my thought was I want to make sure that I continue to foster my MBA side of my mind. And so I ended up doing some stuff at the Wharton School of Business, where I did a fellowship in healthcare entrepreneurship, learning and understanding how ideas go from concept to marketability and to sales. Well, all that kind of laid the foundation so that when I was in my own practice, as I had ideas, I started going to industry and saying, hey, this is the idea I have. This is why it makes sense. This is going to be your return on investment. This is the market cap that you're going to go after. And so here I was as a surgeon speaking their language and convincing them that it wasn't just a good idea for clinical reasons, but a good idea from a return on investment perspective as well. So I've been involved with developments of plates that are used currently in orthopedic surgery. I've been involved with screws that are now being implemented. I'm part of a design team for a new total ankle replacement system that will hopefully change some of the limitations that we have with current systems. And so I am very, very much involved with industry, helping to design, refine, design, and implement and educate on new devices.
Yeah, wow. And I have seen that you have performed the surgery with Google Glasses. So before you tell us about that procedure, how did you get involved with technology overall?
So again, evolution is really how it worked. Again, it goes back to the MBA, thinking about things that I read. So let me back up a little bit more. I'll give you some background. When I was a medical student, I was doing my MBA, I also was working at a lab at Harvard. And the person who was running that lab, his idea was that if we could pollinate different parts of medicine, different fields of medicine, we could probably learn a lot from each other. And by learning a lot from each other, we could advance our own specific field. So, for example, this lab was run by a dermatologist, but under his dermatology lab, he had orthopedics, ENT surgery, ophthalmology, and everybody was learning from each other. So that was very inspiring to me. Again, another physician was thinking out of the box. So as I got my MBA and I started reading about a lot of different industries, I would read things and say, hey, that has an application in what I do in medicine. Yeah. As I started reading more about technology, which I've always loved since I was a teenager, I started saying, hey, maybe there's ways that I could implement those different technological solutions in what I'm doing. So here comes Google Glass. I've been reading a lot about the internet. I was involved with the internet in terms of looking for ways to refine the management of thought leaders. I had a company when I was training that helped to manage thought leaders for pharmaceutical and biotech companies. And so I had this interest in the internet. And so I knew about Google Glass, all that stuff that was soon to come out, but I didn't really understand the depth of it. So when Google Glass last year made the call for what they call their explorers, I thought, let me put in a proposal as to how I think I could be an important explorer for Google and have them learn one of the ways they could use Google Glass. So I put in the proposal, and my proposal was based on some of the charity work that my family foundation does in India. So I'll kind of digress for a second.
Okay.
So I am an orthopedic foot and ankle surgeon, and 99% of my practice is focused from the knee to the toes. In India, orthopedic surgery for everything in orthopedics is up to par with anywhere in the world, except for foot and ankle surgery, where a lot of the diseases and the pathologies are going ignored. So you can imagine if you have a population of over 2 billion feet, so 1.2 billion people, over 2 billion feet, and much of the pathology is being ignored, that's a travesty.
Yeah.
And so my family set up a foundation 7 years ago to start working on educating, training the orthopedic surgeons in India on foot and ankle care, and then doing charitable surgeries and charitable clinics while we were in India. So initially we were doing it once a year. Now we do it 3 times a year. So it's grown and it's become very successful. So in the six years that we've been now doing this, we've trained over 800 surgeons, performed about 80 surgeries, seen over 500 patients. So it's really had an impact in India. When we first started, there were only 3 surgeons in India who were interested in foot and ankle care. Now we have over 35 guys who said we're going to dedicate our careers just to foot and ankle surgery. So a lot's been changing. But my idea was that I'm doing all this stuff in India, but it's only episodic. So when I'm there, for the few days I'm there, I make an impact, but then I come back and it's lost.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, Google Glass was a perfect platform where I could take advantage of the zone difference between India and the U.S. And while I was operating and taking care of patients here in America, people in India could be watching because I could broadcast it. The surgeons could be watching, and they could ask me questions and learn about foot and ankle care, so that I could, even though I'm just here in the U.S., continue to educate, continue to train, and find a solution. And so that was my proposal to Google. For about 8 months, I never heard back. In fact, I forgot I had even put in the proposal. And one fine day, I opened up my email, and I got an email from Google saying, "You've been accepted to be an explorer, one of the early people to beta test this product. Are you still interested?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I'm interested."
Wow. Yeah.
So I got the glass in October. November, December, I was just playing around with it here in the operating rooms in Durham, North Carolina. In January, I was doing some of my charity work while I was in India. Now, my intent was just to play around with it in India. But what happened was we had a press conference for the charitable work that we do the night before our work started. And I happened to pull out Google Glass in front of the media. And they went crazy. It was like throwing chum in the water where all great whites were. I mean, they were just going nuts. And they said, "We want to see this in action." So the whole night, myself and the hospital administration stayed awake. And they had to drop in new bandwidth lines into the hospital dedicated just for Google Glass. And the next day, we broadcasted for the first time ever a total ankle replacement to the whole world.
Wow.
And so many people hit the website that it crashed the website. We got it back up. But they estimate between 15 to 20,000 people were watching at any given point in time, which is amazing. So that made global news around the world. And it actually ended up being the cornerstone of a piece that the New York Times did, and then a corner piece of what the Bloomberg News did on me. And then it's just continued to snowball.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I use Google Glass every day that I'm in the operating room. I am hopefully about a month away from implementing Google Glass into my clinics. So while I'm seeing patients, we'll start trying to implement Google Glass. There's a company in San Francisco that allows physicians to wear Google Glass, and they have somebody watching the interaction, and they're doing all the documentation while you're interacting with the patient, so that I can just focus on you, the patient, and not worry about sitting there in front of my computer and typing and not really paying attention to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to really change how medicine's practiced. And you're going to probably start seeing in the next 5 years a lot more physicians wearing Google Glass.
Is anybody else wearing Google Glass now, or just you?
So at my institution, I am one of now there are about 3 or 4 guys who are using it. I've got the most experience because I've been the one who's been using it as a quote-unquote explorer. Around the country, there are pockets of physicians who are playing with Google Glass in their own way. One of the things of Glass, I get a lot of praise, but I get some criticism as well as to, so you're doing Google Glass. Well, what's so special about it? Because you can bring a cameraman into the operating room and you can do the exact same thing. And that's true. But if I have a cameraman in there, then he's got his setup. That's one more individual in the operating room that I might bump into that may contaminate the operative field. And it's a lot more equipment. And it's much more costly. So if I have a low-cost solution that I can wear on my head where the camera's seeing exactly what I see, that's pretty amazing. But it goes a little bit more than that. So that's kind of the first iteration of using Google Glass. What I envision over the next few years is Google Glass is going to be used more as a tool, not just a camera. So you'll be able to start doing things like this California, where you can do documentation right into electronic medical records. You'll be able to pull up electronic medical records on your Google Glass. You'll be able to pull up CAT scans, X-rays, MRIs, so that you can look at that while you're doing your surgeries. In fact, I think about this. Imagine you're undergoing a rare surgery. Let's just say a heart transplant, and you have a surgeon who maybe has only done 5 or 6 in his career. right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the operating room with him, you're on the table, he sees something that's anomalous, something that he didn't expect. If he's wearing Google Glass, at the command of his voice, he can just say, please connect me to Dr. Parekh or Dr. DeBakey in Texas or whatever it is. And if Dr. DeBakey is available, Dr. DeBakey comes into the operating room through the glass and can walk your surgeon through the rest of the surgery to help your surgeon out, which means
Wow.
better quality of care for you, better outcomes for him, and a comfort level that he, at any point in time, has a surgical team available to him.
Mm-hmm. That's
That's the power
amazing.
of glass.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Dr. Parekh, besides being an innovator and a surgeon, of course, entrepreneur, I know that you're also involved with philanthropy and you do so many other things. Would you tell us, please?
Sure. So the philanthropic work really goes back to the stuff that we're doing in India. My family foundation, the Parekh Family Foundation, got started about 7, 8 years ago. We do a lot of different things in the Triangle area of North Carolina. We
Mm-hmm.
bring in thought leaders to the local area of in orthopedic surgery, and they educate the local orthopedic surgeons on some of the cutting edge technologies or thoughts that are happening in orthopedic surgery. Um, I envision that we're going to change up that whole program and we're going to start bringing in disruptive technology players in medicine and expose physicians across the board in North Carolina to some of these novel technologies because I think there's a big need for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things we do. We also do college scholarship programs. We the biggest thing we do though is this charitable work in India, which, like I was saying, we've now trained over 800 surgeons, done over
Mm-hmm.
80 procedures. We've been doing a lot of transformative work in India, and the level of care is tremendously changing for foot and ankle patients in India. Um, in addition, we are now starting to do what we call Soul for Souls, where we're trying to collect slightly used sneakers, shoes from the U.S. We take it to India for those who don't have any
Mm-hmm.
footwear and are very poor. We are going to start a program where we start bringing surgeons from around the world to the U.S. to help
Mm-hmm.
train at different centers. And our charitable efforts are now expanding. Mauritius has reached the island of Mauritius, the country of Mauritius has reached out to us. Our foundation has asked us to start a program in Mauritius. And so next year, not only are we going to go to India, but we're also going to go to Mauritius. There's a group in Israel that's reached out to us, and I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll start doing some charitable work in Israel. So it continues to expand the scope of our charitable work.
Mm-hmm. And if someone wants to donate either financial help or shoes, where do
Yeah.
they ship it?
So
Or
the best thing to do is find us on our website at www.parekhfamilyfoundation.org. So it's Parekh familyfoundation.org. And you can donate. You can find the information to get information on how to ship us shoes, and then we'll take it to India with us. So all the information is on that website. We have fundraising activities that we now do once or twice a year to number one, increase the awareness of our work, but also increase the funds so that we can continue to increase the scope of our work.
mm-hmm. That's amazing. Dr. Parekh, you obviously are so successful. So what is success to you personally?
So that's a great question. I think success is when you found something in your life that you're passionate about. I think that's successful because, and that can be anything. But I think if you're passionate about whatever you're doing in life, number one, it's not work; it's a passion, and you devote your all to it. So you derive a lot of inner happiness from it and satisfaction. To me, that's successful in my career. Success for me in my personal life is making sure that I'm the husband that I want to be, the father that's always available to my kids, and helping to raise kids that are socially responsible, and want to make a difference.
Great. Did you have any role models on your way to success?
Many. The first two role models would probably be my parents, to be honest. So they were immigrants to the U.S., and as immigrants, they didn't know anybody when they came to the U.S. In fact, to save 25 cents in milk cost, my mom, back when even before I was born, would walk 3 miles in the snow just to save 25 cents to get a gallon of milk. But they taught us, my brother and I, some core values of working hard, being respectful, being honest, and whatever you do, whatever endeavors you do it 100%. So that was kind of the foundation that I then launched the rest of my career. And then along the way, I've had role models who have been surgeon entrepreneurs. There's the former chairman of orthopedic surgery at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Harvard. His name was Henry Mencken. He was a giant. He is a giant of orthopedic surgery, now retired, but he was a surgeon entrepreneur who inspired me to go into orthopedic surgery, but also inspired me to take care of patients, to make sure that your patients really felt like you were invested in them, and have every single patient feel like you had their best interest at heart. And then I had another mentor at the University of Pennsylvania, Keith Wapner, who's still in practice. But he taught me that you can be a transformative surgeon, but remember that the most important thing in your life is your family. And that your legacy, I mean, this is all great, but my legacy really is my kids and my family. Because at the end of the day, when I'm done and gone, within weeks to months, a lot of this other stuff may be forgotten, but my kids and my family will continue to remember me. And he taught me that should always stay your priority, and to stay grounded. I think those three, my parents and those two surgeons, were probably the most formative in my life.
Them to students that are in med school right now or in business school, what would be your words of wisdom to them?
Get inspired. So here, my words of wisdom would be: number one, be open to opportunities. Okay. If somebody told me when I first started medical school that this is what I would be doing in my career aside from taking care of patients, I would have said you're crazy, because I never saw this path. So you got to be open to opportunities, because you never know where life will take you. I think secondly, you got to find things that you're passionate about. So that means being open to new experiences, being open to hearing different thoughts and ideas, and really gravitating towards things that you really feel strongly about. Because if you get the passion going, then getting up in the morning every morning, regardless of what time it is invigorating. I think number three, also try to be creative in life, because creativity is fun. And if you can work that other side of your brain, you end up constantly having fun. Okay. And that creativity can be in the form of music, or in the form of art, or creativity with medical devices, or software, you name it, but be creative.
Wonderful.
I think those are the three things.
That's great. Do you personally have some kind of rituals you do every day, maybe like reading a book or meditating, to keep you in the best shape?
My ritual is working out. Actually, it's my solace. And so whether I'm going out for a run and I have my alone time there, or I'm on the pre-core, or I'm lifting weights, for me that's my solace. That's my alone time, where for 45 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, I have time to think and unwind and relax. I don't sleep much. I only sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. So I don't really. And when my wife always laughs, she says I fall asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow. So it's not like I do much thinking when I'm asleep, or trying to get to sleep. So for me, it's just that 45 minutes to an hour, 4 or 5 times a week.
Great. And how do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a loaded question, given that I said be open to all opportunities. To be honest, I don't know. I think I would love to continue to be involved in the forefront of the transformation of technology and medicine together. I think we are at a very exciting time in medicine where technology is going to shape the next 50 to 100 years in medicine, especially when we talk about wearable technologies. So that's not just Google Glass, but that's like the Apple Watch or the Samsung Galaxy or the Pebbles, or there's new brooches or shirts that are very smart that can look at your blood pressure, your EKGs, stuff like that. That all is kind of called wearable technologies. I see myself in 5 years continuing to be on the forefront of it, helping to develop ways that it can be implemented to affect patients' health and to allow patients to own their health so that they're more invested in their health, they're taking care of themselves better, and hopefully it means for better quality of living.
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously, you are a world-class physician, world-class innovator, just a world-class individual. So, in your opinion, what is the difference between world-class mindset and an average person mindset?
Ooh, that's a loaded question as well. I don't think it's. I to be honest, I just think that I've had myself open to opportunities that I was curious enough about that I went and I pursued. I think everybody's, to be honest, I think everybody's world class in their own ways, and some of it may be introverted, but they're world class in the things that they're introverted about. And for me, I happen to be very interested in things that happen to gain a lot of attention, and because it gets a lot of attention, people think that it's a world class surgeon. But I don't look at it that way. I think all of us have our real strengths that we play to, and mine just happen to be things that unfortunately fortunately or unfortunately get a lot of attention.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you would like to add to inspire future innovators and surgeons?
I think I would say that from the business side, I think it is very, very important for innovators, whether they're in IT, software, business guys, that if you're going to be in the healthcare field, make sure to reach out and engage physicians. That's number one. I think from the physician standpoint, again, be open to opportunities. Look for ways that you can revolutionize the care of your patients, because there are some solutions out there. They're not all thought of yet, and you can be inspired. Just look around you, and there's inspiring things all around you. You just got to take the time to look at it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Parekh. You are such an interesting individual. I would be asking you hundreds more questions. I know I have to be mindful of your time. So.
Oh, no, I appreciate it.